The ground beneath Oregon is breathing. Right now, at this moment, a patch of wilderness 3 miles west of South Sister Volcano has risen nearly 12 inches since scientists first began watching. And in the summer of 2020, a system that every major outlet had declared finished inhaled again. 213,072 Americans live inside its hazard footprint. Most of them have never heard the word Lahar. A seismometer bolted to a volcanic peak called the Husband has been registering microquakes 4 miles underground since 2021. The Pacific Crest Trail runs straight across the bulge. And sitting 30 minutes downstream of a glacier-fed creek held back by nothing more than a dam made of loose rock and sediment is the town of Sisters, Oregon. Population 3,500, tucked into a valley that Lahar models say could fill with moving walls of mud and boulders in under an hour. This is not a dormant system. This is a system that learned to hide. The timeline begins in 1997, and it begins in silence. 3 miles west of South Sister, the ground starts to rise. Nobody notices. Nobody has the instruments to notice. By the year 2000, the rate hits 5 centimeters a year, roughly the speed of a human fingernail growing, but spreading across a circle of forest 12 miles wide. By 2001, USGS satellite analysts reprocess older NSAR data and find something that stops them cold. 5 centimeters of uplift had already silently accumulated over the previous 4 years, completely undetected. That October, a field crew helicopters a continuous GPS receiver and a seismometer to the summit of the Husband, a 7,524-foot peak 1.25 miles from the dead center of the anomaly. The instruments start listening. The ground keeps rising. For the next 16 years, the story seems to resolve. The rate slows. By 2017, uplift has fallen to half a centimeter per year. The consensus paper is written. The scientific community publishes its conclusions. The bulge, every major outlet announces, is winding down. It is finishing. Then comes the summer of 2020. A satellite 430 miles overhead catches the ground doing something it was not supposed to do anymore. In 14 months, it has risen another 2.2 centimeters. After 20 years of deceleration, after the official declaration that the episode was ending, the system has restarted. By August 2021, that new pulse of uplift has fully stacked. By early 2022, another half centimeter follows. As of 2026, the cumulative rise sits at 30 centimeters, nearly 12 inches of fresh ground lifted across an area larger than the city of Portland. Dr. John Major, scientist in charge of the USGS Cascades Volcano Observatory, has said it plainly on the record. This process has probably been going on for a long time. We just never had the technology to see it. Let that land for a moment. Not that the system is new, that the system was always there, invisible. Now zoom out to understand exactly what sits on that ground. Drop down through the Pacific Northwest, cross the Cascade Crest in central Oregon, 3 hours southeast of Portland. There are 3 peaks in a line: North Sister, Middle Sister, South Sister, 10,358 feet tall, glacier-capped, the youngest and most volcanically dangerous of the 3. The bulge is not under the summit. It sits 3 miles off to the west, buried in deep wilderness, hidden from anyone driving through on Route 20. But the consequences of what happens there are not hidden at all. 23 miles east downwind lies Bend, Oregon, 109,389 people inside its urban growth boundary, one of the fastest-growing cities in the American West. 15 miles north of the bulge, the town of Sisters sits on the bank of Wychus Creek. That creek runs directly out of a glacier on South Sister's north flank and reaches town in fewer than 30 miles. Roberts Field, the regional airport, sits 12 miles north of Bend. The Pacific Crest Trail crosses the dome directly. Thousands of hikers pass over the exact center of the deformation zone every season. Here is the detail buried in the data that changes everything. The Three Sisters Bulge is one of only 2 known active uplifts in the entire Cascade Range. It sits on a list of 18 volcanoes the United States rates as very high threat. And the source of all this movement, 6 to 7 kilometers below the forest floor, is not the volcano you can see. It is the one you cannot. The mechanism, described in physical terms, works like this. Magma is squeezing upward through a fracture system from much deeper in the earth. It hits a layer at approximately 4 miles down where it can no longer rise. It pools. It spreads sideways. It pushes the rock above it upward like a hand pressing into a mattress from beneath. And every few years, when it pulses, the ground 150 miles south of Portland gets a little wider, a little taller, a little thinner overhead. Dr. Major has said on the record, "This is not the kind of change in the surface of the ground that you or I would stand out there and detect at all." But that is only half the problem, because the real hazard does not require an eruption. South Sister is heavily glaciated, and 5 separate times in the last century, glacial moraine dams above the mountain have failed without warning, sending walls of mud and boulders cascading down its flanks. Collier Lake failed in the early 1940s. Diller Lake failed in 1970. A flash flood struck on October 7, 1966. None of those events reached the town of Sisters. The next one might not stop short. USGS Lahar models give the town of Sisters between 30 minutes and 1 hour of warning from the moment of initiation to the moment of arrival. Picture this. A waitress on a Tuesday morning in downtown Sisters hears a sound she has never heard before. By the time she walks to the door, the front of the wave is already inside the city limits. The cascade of consequences does not stop at one town. It scales in layers, and each layer is worse than the one before it. First, the wilderness. The Pacific Crest Trail runs directly across the dome. A phreatic explosion, a steam blast, identical in mechanism to the one that tore through Yellowstone's Biscuit Basin in July of 2024, would occur exactly where hikers are standing. There is no warning system for that. There is no evacuation window. Second, the town. Sisters has 3,500 residents positioned directly downstream of an unstable glacier dam system. The 30-minute warning window assumes someone is monitoring the right creek at the right moment. Third, the city. Bend has 109,389 people. Lahar models and volcanic ash dispersal models show it could receive 1 to 2 inches of abrasive volcanic glass during a rock mesoscale explosive phase. That ash kills small engine vehicles. It shorts out heating and cooling systems. It closes Roberts Field for weeks, severing the regional airport and air ambulance routes. It contaminates the Bridge Creek water supply. People who have never heard the word Lahar would find themselves unable to drive, unable to heat their homes, unable to drink the tap water. Fourth, the county. 213,072 Deschutes County residents fall inside the regional hazard footprint. And this is the fastest growing population in Oregon this decade. More people are moving into that footprint every month, most of them with no awareness of what sits beneath the volcanic range visible on their western horizon. Fifth, the corridor. The Pacific Northwest Aviation Corridor, Seattle to Portland to San Francisco, runs directly over the Cascades. Mount St. Helens shut it down for weeks in 1980. A South Sister explosive phase would do it again. This time with more than 4 times the air traffic that was in those skies 45 years ago. And this is the part where the questions stop having answers. The uplift could stall again, the way it almost did in 2017, and quietly resume in 15 years. The fluid plume at 6 kilometers depth could turn out to be hot water and gas rather than magma, in which case the most likely failure mode is not a full eruption but a targeted steam blast, precisely where a hiker is standing. Or the system could keep refilling. The 2,000-year analog event left a 5-mile fissure of black volcanic glass on South Sister's southeast flank, the Devil's Chain, along with 20 separate domes and coulees produced in a single eruptive sequence. Dr. Major has said there would be a lot more warning signs before anything like that. More earthquakes, faster uplift, gas emissions rising. He has said that. He has also said in the same interview that this process has probably been going on for a long time and we just never had the technology to see it. So which sentence is the one that matters? The questions keep stacking. Why did the bulge restart in 2020, the exact year the deceleration rate was supposed to reach 0? What does it mean that the closest seismic instrument to the deformation center is bolted to a peak that is itself rising half a centimeter a year toward the very satellites it is reporting to? And how do you evacuate a town of 3,500 people in 30 minutes when the trigger is a glacier no one is actively watching? The thing on Bend's doorstep is not a movie volcano. It is not a cone of fire on the horizon. It is a glacier-fed creek with a dam made of rocks, sitting above 213,000 people who have never heard the word Lahar, fed by a magmatic system that announced its return without asking permission. And right now, on a steel cabinet anchored to a basalt outcrop on a peak called the Husband, a green light is blinking once every 30 seconds. The ground is still rising. The instruments are still listening. And the volcano that everyone said was finished is breathing in.